Hey folks, Mike Dawkins from Worldcast Anglers here with your Jackson Hole fly fishing forecast for the first weekend in June, June 1st and 2nd. It's an absolutely gorgeous bluebird, sunny, warm day here on the South Fork of the Snake, and it feels like summer is here. After all of the winter weather we've endured the past 2 or 3 weeks, I'm not gonna lie, it feels pretty darn good to see it hot and dry and sunny. The South Fork of the Snake looks absolutely gorgeous right now. Clarity is great. We've got bugs hatching. We've got all areas of the river open to fishing. Side channels, braids, riffles, bends, anything along those lines looks very trouty and inviting, just like in true summertime fashion. But that will probably change here in the next 2 to 3 weeks as we start to see our snowpack really get to rip. We've had these lulls in our runoff where we've gotten these spikes in our hydrograph. We've seen flows increase. We've seen clarity decrease. We've seen snowpack refreeze. You know, last weekend, you know, the snake up there by Moose was very inviting and very fishable, but I know that is going to change here in the next 2 or 3 days when we've had some warm, sunny weather and some daytime temperatures into the 70s. The Palisades Reservoir above me is 80% of capacity. Jackson Lake, 92% of capacity. Saturday, our weather is starting to trend in that summer fashion. We've got 70 and 46 with lots of sun. Sunday, we've got 65 and 50 with some clouds, but our 10-day forecast, we've got some days in the mid-70s and even the lower 80s when you start to look on the lower South Fork of the Snake and the lower Henry's Fork and areas in our region. That is going to mean runoff is going to rip. It's going to get going here, and we'll most likely see the peak in these next 2 to 3 weeks. So keep that in mind as you start planning your fishing calendar or your weekends, looking ahead where areas that may have been fishable earlier may not be an option right now. The South Fork of the Snake behind me is 10,000 CFS, 11,400 CFS, a little bit lower down by Heise. Clarity right now on the South Fork of the Snake is awesome. Water temperatures are still cold, so we're still doing a lot of nymphing, still doing a lot of streamer fishing. No dry fly fishing really, you know, reports coming back to the shop. They've been very sporadic. You may see some Baetis and some caddis, especially here on the lower river. But expect that to change here in the next couple weeks as things sort of start to warm up. Our water temperature and ambient temperature gets going. But historically, the South Fork of the Snake right now has really cold flows, so most of your fishing is going to be in the subsurface aspects. The Henry's Fork of the Snake, 684 CFS up there on the box, 1,710 CFS there on the lower river. We've got salmon flies sort of all over the river system. Most consistent fishing on the salmon flies has been, you know, around Warm River to Ashton, you know, the Riverside area, and as they start at Lower Mesa, and as they start creeping up into the Box Canyon. So your dry dropper rigs are going to start to come into play. Pair those, you know, with your Spanish quills, your bullet quills, your tungsten jig pheasant tails, or some of your caddis pupa, because there's a lot of those coming out. But also be on the lookout for the beginning of some of our yellow sallies, other caddis, and the golden stones, especially there on the lower river. So top to bottom, if you're looking for some dry fly fishing, the Henry's Fork is definitely the place to be. The Teton in Teton Valley, 756 CFS and 2,210 CFS there on the lower river. So that's about double of what I reported last year. And similarly to the Snake, we're going to see the Teton start to rip. We're going to see flows increase. We're going to see clarity decrease. So it's going to be on the pleasure cruise orientation here for the next month, you know, 3 weeks, as we start to see runoff really kick into high gear. The Snake in Jackson, we saw flows increase coming out of Jackson Lake Dam to 3,500 CFS, and then flows going into Palisades Reservoir around 12,300 CFS. Like I was saying earlier, the really cool cold weather that we had at the beginning of this week stalled out our runoff, and there definitely was some fishing windows on the Snake, especially Pacific to Deadman's, maybe even, Dam to Pacific, maybe Pacific to Deadman's, you know, driving over the Moose Bridge to go fish Jenny Lake last week. The Snake around there had plenty of clarity to fish. But as I was saying with the Teton, look for that to taper off here in the next couple days as runoff really starts to get going on the Snake. You always have the dam to Pacific Creek that will run clear this time of year. There's a lot of lake trout and other trout that live in the discharge pools down there below the dam. They can be caught or targeted with intermediate lines, light sinking lines, clouser minnows, crelexes, white buggers, and things of those sorts. You may see some dry fly activity as you get down to Pacific Creek and some of the current starts to pick up with caddis, leftover blooming olives, midges, and some of those early spring hatches that we see around the Snake. Yellowstone National Park is open to fishing now. We've got 472 CFS on the Firehole, 917 CFS on the Madison. Those are a little high, but as you know, as I've reported in the past, you know, the Firehole and the Madison, they don't really get off color. They don't get muddy and dirty and chocolate milk oriented in their colors of their runoffs. They do get high, but in that increased in flows, they're very tannic. So they usually are very fishable, especially in the first weeks when the park is open. I would be looking for some salmon flies or golden stones on the Madison, maybe even the Firehole Canyon. On cloudy, cool days, I'd be looking for blue-winged olives and caddis on the Firehole. And then on those sunny, warm days, I'd be looking for the first emergences of PMDs. The Firehole and the Madison are classic rivers to swing soft tackles, to swing streamers. I like a type 3 or maybe even an intermediate poly leader, some small buggers or leeches with any of your classic soft tackles or any new age soft tackles. Presentations 45 degrees down and across. You can cover a lot of water and have a lot of fun with some of those fishing techniques. The fly shop is open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6, I'm sorry, we're open at 7 a.m. now to 7 p.m. And our Sunday, we're open from 7 a.m. to around 3 p.m. So stop in, get what you need. If you're heading towards the Henry's Fork or the South Fork of the Snake, have a great weekend and a safe weekend on the water, and we'll see you here next.